Good afternoon. Thank you, David, for the kind words of introduction. Also, it gives me great pleasure to see you after a few years, even through this Zoom platform. So, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to thank Professor David Worrell and the organizers of the meeting for inviting me to give this talk, keynote address. And my presentation is basically the overview of these snake bites and other kinds of stings in Sri Lanka. This is a recent publication where 3 regions in the globe were compared. And you see Sri Lanka as a hotspot in the Indian Ocean. We are having a lot of snake bites. I would like to take you to Sri Lanka. It's a small island and it has diverse climatic conditions. Central part of the island is hilly, as you see here, hilly terrain and evergreen, and the tea plantation you see. The other regions, the lowland is mainly dry, except the southern area, that's a wet zone. And in the dry zone that comprises about 60% of the land, has a lot of man-made lakes, reservoirs, and some part of the coastal area is really dry, arid zones. Sri Lanka has rich biodiversity. You see in slide, snakes, then the monkeys, as well as plenty of dogs. So Sri Lanka has recorded history of 2,500 years. Even there's a prehistoric stories that all talk about traditional healing methods, Ayurveda, and until recent time, people after snake bite sought traditional healing methods. It was in 1965, we see first case report of snake bite managed in hospital, government hospital, in allopathic system. And this particular patient has been given antivenom. Antivenom, the Indian polyvalent antivenom, was available in Sri Lanka from mid-1900. Sri Lanka Medical Association, which has been in existence for almost 135 years, in 1983, dedicated one of the journal issues for snake bite. Professor David Worrell actually, in fact, has contributed immensely for this journal. I have to show this picture to show you Dr. Anselm de Silva. He's considered as father of herpetology in the modern day. And he has done a lot of taxonomic work on snakes and all kinds of other animals. So Sri Lanka, as I said, has a rich biodiversity and recorded 101 species of snakes. Of them, 15 are sea snakes, 39 species are venomous, and there are 69 of medically important snakes. Taking the statistics, here you see the hospital admissions. In early 1990s, the only reasonable number of patients came to hospitals and had fairly high death rate, as you see here. And in the recent time, I'll take you, in the recent years, we see about 30 to 35,000 patients who are coming to the government hospitals. And unfortunately, some patients die with the case fatality rate of 0.2%. So why these patients die, some numbers, there is one reason is we don't have very effective antivenom for Sri Lankan context. So Sri Lanka has important snakes, the Russell's viper, cobra, common crate, hump-nosed vipers, saw-scale viper, Ceylon crate, green pit viper, not that venomous, and the sea snakes. This common crate distributed mainly in the dry zone. This common crate is common to the region. And fortunately, now the common crate bites are reducing because of improved housing condition of the people. Then the Ceylon crate, which is the endemic species of the island, confined to the mainly the hilly and the wet zone of the island. And the bites are very much rare. And the first case report was published in 1982. And this picture shows one of the snake handler who was bitten by Ceylon crate. And it has definitely produced significant neuromuscular paralysis. Coming to the cobra, cobra is widely distributed in the island, and it has the religious importance, and it is common in arts and crafts. And it bites mainly neurotoxic and producing severe local necrosis. Then Russell's viper, again like cobra, distributed all over the island. It causes significant number of bites, mainly during agricultural activities of the people, the farmers. And it has multi-systemic involvement, and even patients develop intracranial problems like cerebral infarcts. Abdominal pain is a common feature of Russell's viper bite, and it has some relationship to early envenoming. Then the saw scale viper, that is confined to the coastal sandy beaches of the island in the northern sector. And the bites are quite common in this area, but the deaths are never heard of saw scale viper bite. And the polyvalent Indian antivenom used to correct the coagulopathy we see. When you take hump nose, there are 3 species of hump nose: Hypnale hypnale, Hypnale sara, and Hypnale nepa. So these hump nose vipers are distributed Hypnale hypnale throughout the island except northern sector. But the other 2 species are more or less in the wet zone of the island, that is you see here. The danger of hump nose viper is, at the moment, there's no antivenom. The Indian antivenom we use in Sri Lanka does not cover hump nose viper. Most of the patients develop local envenoming, but it is unpredictable that some patients develop coagulopathy as well as acute renal failure due to glomerular damage that cause deaths. Green pit vipers are common in the island. They are arboreal snakes, mainly the tea plantation and the estates. Bites are not uncommon, producing local envenoming. Sometimes it is more local envenoming and hardly any systemic envenoming. Then coming to sea snakes, the Sri Lanka is surrounded by sea, and that sea is rich in sea snake. It is not uncommon to see the fishermen who is actually reaching the Jaffna area, northern area in the morning, to disentangle more than 100 sea snakes entrapped in their nets. But there are hardly any sea snake bites. However, the most important sea snake is Enhydrina cystosa. That is a vicious snake, and there are 3 case reports of Enhydrina cystosa envenoming in Sri Lanka, and the patients developed severe myotoxicity. 1 patient died, and you see in this picture the myoglobinuria. Then there's another snake called Balanophis silnensis, which was regarded as less venomous, but there's a recent report we found its bites produce significant systemic envenoming. And its counterpart, Rhabdophis, they are in Far East countries like Japan, they are highly venomous. So coming to antivenom in Sri Lanka, as I said earlier, from mid-1900, the antivenom was available in Sri Lanka, imported from India, So that particular antivenom was half-kind antivenom. Then later, during last 2 decades, Sri Lanka is not getting down half-kind, we are getting down Vince and Bharat product. This Indian antivenom is a Fab2 fraction after pepsin digestion of the immunoglobulin G molecule. And I have to say, there was an attempt of introducing new antivenom to Sri Lanka. And the credit should go to Professor David Doral from Oxford and his team and Colombo team. They developed monospecific ovine Fab antibodies against Sri Lankan Russell's viper. That was in early 1990s. And the clinical trials were done at Anuradhapur Hospital where I was working. And it is interesting to note this, the antivenom was given an intriguing label as Polanga tab. Polanga means Russell's viper in Sinhala language in Sri Lanka. So it was labeled Polanga tab. And as it is only Fab, it has a rapid tissue distribution as less reaction. It was shown to be effective, but unfortunately, it did not come into commercial production. Later, the Sri Lankan scientists, they did efficacy studies of Indian antivenom, which are imported to Sri Lanka, and found the less efficacy of these Indian antivenom for Sri Lankan species. Naturally, there's the proven geographical variation of venom composition of snakes. Even within Sri Lanka, there's a geographical variation, but the large country like India, it is pretty obvious. Now there are 2 projects going in antivenom production. The one is Costa Rica group and the Sri Lankan group, and they have developed new polyspecific antivenom that is IgG, and it's freeze-dried form from horses, and they have done the clinical trials and not yet published. Because of that, there are no details I can discuss further about it, but said to be effective. And this antivenom also include hump nose viper venom, so it covers the hump nose or viper venom.
Un trabajo sobre el desarrollo de antivenenos.
Then another production is with India, the premium serum and vaccine of India, together with University of Peradeniya, have developed antivenom based on Sri Lankan venom, including hump nose viper, and that is called Sri Lankan venom antiserum, SLAVS, that is lyophilized polyvalent Fab2 antivenom. And this antivenom now is ready for clinical trials. So we can see the results in future. So Sri Lanka has a snakebite committee that is now developing guidelines every 2 to 3 years time. Last guidelines developed in 2019, and these guidelines are available in the web. So leaving a snakebite now, I just wish to share some aspects about the other environmental hazards in Sri Lanka environment. So this is one study done in northwestern province of the island that included 44 primary hospitals, and we found fair number, for 1 year, fair number with all kinds of stings, Hymenoptera, centipede, spiders, scorpions. Fortunately, there are no deaths due to these stings and bites. So I wish to share some historical aspects of discovery of Indian red scorpion in northern Sri Lanka, as Professor David Goral mentioned. The Sri Lanka had a civil wars, and for 30 years in the northern sector, so there were hardly any research happened during that time. But somewhere around early 2000, the physicians of Jaffna reported deaths due to a scorpion stings. The public in the area recognized the scorpion as white scorpion that was introduced or appeared in the region during that time, not previously. Annually, there are about 70 to 80 admissions to the hospital due to scorpion stings. Initially, patients died, but the physicians were so clever, they actually found the literature and they started using plasocine. With that, the deaths were reduced or became almost zero. So we had the challenge to identify this responsible scorpion. So the scorpion was identified as Potentita tamulus, or Indian red scorpion, in a collaborative study done by University of Peradeniya with Czech Republic. Why the scorpion was called white scorpion? Here you see the scorpion, the Potentita tamulus, because it is not really white, it is red. But the common scorpion is a heterometrous species, the black scorpion or giant frost scorpion found in Sri Lanka everywhere. Any rainy day, this scorpion used to creep into compounds or houses. But it bites, but non-fatal except severe local pain. But this Potentita tamulus is highly venomous. So going through the Sri Lankan scorpion list, Sri Lanka has about 16 species of recognized species. Out of that, 11 are endemic species. So we did a study, clinical study of scorpion stings in Jaffna. And over a year, there were 81 patients. And you will read here the clinical manifestations, that is autonomic storm. And the patients developed pulmonary edema and acute heart failure due to autonomic storm. In addition, they had severe local pain. This picture shows the most of the stings were happening in the hands, sometimes feet. All these things were happening inside the house when the people were doing dressings. We are dressing to go for work and so on, and the school children particularly. The management was plasocine and the lignocaine application for gel. We don't have antivenom for scorpion stings, this Indian red scorpion, but I know it is common in Maharashtra area in India, and they have antivenom, and that is being used. Then to share some aspects about this Hymenoptera, the flying insects, ant, wasp, and bees, and there are family Vespidae and the subfamily Vespinae. So Sri Lanka has one hornet called Vespa affinis, and there's another honeybee that is called giant Asian honeybee. These two are the common Hymenoptera, medically important. This is Vespa affinis, or hornet, fairly large hornet, and it has a yellow band. It used to build their nest in buildings very close to human dwelling. Easily get disturbed and they attack humans. And there are large number of severe cases were happening with anaphylaxis. Some patients die. Some are unreported in the literature. Here is one report where husband and wife both died due to Vespa affinis attack, due to acute allergy, as well as development of pulmonary edema and acute renal failure. And there's another entity happening that is called Corny syndrome, that is allergic myocardial ischemia due to their sting and envenoming. Then the giant Asian honeybee, that's also widely distributed in the island. They are large honeybees They are common to the region. That's why I call giant Asian honeybee. They make their colonies in the rock surfaces at a high elevation, also high branches of the tree, and sometimes they get disturbed by birds and they start attacking the people nearby. Similar to hornets, it's also causing severe envenoming. Some patients, in this report, the patient has developed myocardial infarction, bowel gangrene. It was a fatal anaphylaxis. So this is also one of the other environmental hazards. Very recently.
Excuse me, Sam, you've got 5 minutes to go.
Yes, I'm almost finishing. Thank you. This recently, we found there's a carpenter bee. That's also jungle carpenter bee that is a killer. Then the spiders, in the worldwide, the spiders are important, but Sri Lanka has about 22 tarantulas. They are medically important, but there are no deaths. Another problem is the jellyfish stinging that is happening in the northern sector of the island, but non-fatal. So management is mainly anaphylaxis. The future directions are antivenom development, reduction of mortality, the prevention of all these environmental hazards, and the conservation. Conservation because these snakes as well as all these insects are part of our ecology. Thank you very much.